My name is Sylvia Morga. I'm 26 years old, and I used to think the worst thing that could happen to me was being rejected by my childhood crush. Turns out the worst part wasn't the rejection. It was realizing years later that everyone suddenly felt entitled to my yes. Growing up, I wasn't the pretty girl. I wasn't the funny one, or the mysterious one, or the one teachers predicted would go far because of some rare talent. I was just the girl who worked hard. My parents weren't strict in the terrifying way, but they were relentless. "You're not naturally gifted, Sylvia," my dad would say, not unkindly. "You just have to outwork everyone." So while other kids were figuring out eyeliner and flirting, I was figuring out study schedules and scholarship applications. By the time I got to college, I had spent so many years with my nose buried in textbooks that I barely knew how to be a person in a room, let alone a person someone might want to date. And then there was Nat. Natalie Harris, Nat to everyone who knew her longer than 5 minutes, was the kind of girl small towns build myths around. Bright eyes, easy laugh, that soft, casual prettiness that doesn't try too hard because it doesn't need to. We weren't close, but we orbited the same social circles through mutual friends. I liked her quietly for years. The kind of liking where you memorize the way someone tucks hair behind their ear and build entire conversations in your head that never actually happen. In my early 20s, when things finally slowed down a bit in college and I started being more social, I decided I was tired of watching my life from the outside. I told myself I'd be brave, just once. So one afternoon, at a friend's get-together, I caught Nat alone in the kitchen, pouring herself a drink. "Hey," I said, heart pounding hard enough to shake my voice. "Can I ask you something?" She smiled, friendly and oblivious. "Sure, what's up?" I still remember my palms sweating around the condensation of my glass. "I was wondering if you'd maybe want to go out sometime, like on an actual date." She laughed. Not a cruel, pointed laugh, more like a startled burst that she immediately tried to smother. "Oh my God, I'm sorry," she said quickly, putting her drink down. I didn't expect that. You surprised me." I said it was fine, but my face was burning. She shook her head, still flustered. "I'm not dating anyone right now. I'm just trying to focus on other stuff, you know? So it's not you. We're friends, and I'm not dating." The words lodged in my chest like a pebble, embarrassing but survivable. Until a few weeks later, I saw a picture of her on social media, arms wrapped around a guy I'd never seen before. Her caption, "Finally said yes." She wasn't not dating. She just wasn't dating me. I told myself it was fine. People lie in awkward moments. She had the right to like whoever she liked. But something in me hardened that day. That crush evaporated. Not dramatically, not with tears or screaming or some big declaration. It just quietly died. Life moved on. I kept my head down, got the grades I needed, and when graduation came, I landed a good job out of town. It felt like winning the lottery. Not because I adored corporate life, but because it was a ticket out of small-town social hierarchies, out of recycled gossip, out of always feeling like the awkward kid sitting at the edge of the table. The job came partly from my academic performance, partly from connections I'd made during an internship. It was in a bigger city, where nobody knew me as that shy girl from high school. That's where Tony and Steve came in. They were both older guys from my team, mid to late 30s, with that easy confidence people get when they've already survived their 20s. They decided I was a project. "Morga, you're gonna disintegrate if you keep living on vending machine snacks," Tony said one day, poking my arm. "You're built like a beanpole. Come to the gym with us. Let us fix you." "I don't need fixing," I protested. Steve snorted. "You absolutely do. You look like you lose 3 hit points every time you open Excel." I ended up going with them just once. Once turned into twice turned into a routine. We started hitting the gym after work, then grabbing food. They teased me, pushed me to talk more, dragged me to social events where they played obnoxiously enthusiastic wingmen. Over the course of 2 years, my life quietly shifted. My clothes started fitting differently. My posture changed. People looked at me a little longer when I walked into a room. I was still awkward, sure, but I wasn't invisible anymore. I could hold a conversation without feeling like I might faint. For the first time, I started seeing myself as, maybe not pretty, but at least someone who could be noticed. Then things back home started falling apart. Family health issues, money problems, the kind of late-night phone calls that leave you staring at the ceiling and mentally calculating bills. Being the successful one suddenly meant I was the responsible one. I asked my company if I could work remotely, closer to my family. To my surprise, they agreed, on the condition that I travel back to the office every quarter for important meetings. So just like that, I found myself back in my hometown. Same streets, same grocery store, same local bar, but a very different version of me. The first time I saw Nat again, I was staring at a wall of cereal boxes. "Sylvia?" a voice said behind me. I turned, and there she was, older, but still undeniably her, hair pulled into a messy bun, a toddler fidgeting in the cart seat. She smiled, and for a second it was like I was back in that college kitchen, heart pounding. "Nat," I said, "wow, hey." We caught up in the awkward, polite way people do in grocery aisles. She told me she was back in town permanently, raising her son on her own. "Single mom life," she said with a half laugh that didn't reach her eyes. "It's a lot, but we're okay." I told her I'd been working in the city and had just moved back. We traded a few safe jokes. She told me I looked great now, voice a little surprised, and I pretended not to notice. As we parted, I felt nothing romantic, no butterflies, just a strange, detached curiosity. The crush was well and truly dead. I thought that was the end of it. It wasn't. A couple of weeks later, we ran into each other again at a mutual friend's party. It was loud, laughter, and music spilling out into the backyard. I was leaning against the kitchen counter, scrolling through my phone, when she walked up. "So," she said, a small smile tugging her lips, "when are you going to ask me out again?" I blinked. "What?" "You heard me." She tilted her head, playful and a little smug. "You had a thing for me back in the day, right? Don't think I didn't notice. So, when's round 2? The room seemed to tilt. Somewhere in the background, someone laughed. 2 years ago, that question would have set off fireworks in my chest. Now it just made my stomach go cold. "The thought honestly hasn't really crossed my mind," I said, keeping my voice even. Her smile faltered. "Seriously?" "Yeah, seriously." Nat stared at me, like she was trying to decide if I was joking. "Why not? You were interested before." "That was 2 years ago," I said quietly. "And you lied to me when you turned me down. I haven't thought of you that way since." The air between us tightened. She scoffed. "Most normal people would be over that by now." I opened my mouth, closed it again. The music suddenly felt too loud, the walls too close. "And let me guess," she added, voice sharpening. "It's because I'm a single mom, right? That's it, isn't it?" Honestly, that was part of it. I was just starting to date around. I didn't want the responsibility and emotional complexity that comes with someone else's child. But that wasn't the whole truth. The bigger truth was simple. I just wasn't attracted to her anymore. "I'm not interested, Nat," I said softly. "That's all." Before she could say anything else, I excused myself and slipped away into the crowd, heart pounding with a familiar anxiety, and the unfamiliar weight of knowing I was the one doing the rejecting this time. I thought it would end there, but that night was just the beginning of the storm. Within days, my phone started lighting up with messages from numbers I barely recognized. Nat's friends, mutuals, people I hadn't spoken to in years, all asking me the same thing. "Why won't you give her a chance?" And suddenly my no wasn't just my business anymore. It was everyone's problem. The first time my phone buzzed that week, I didn't think anything of it. By the 6th message, I felt the air leaving my lungs. By the 15th, my anxiety was a living thing pacing inside my ribs. Most of them were people I hadn't spoken to since high school, girls who once borrowed my notes, guys who barely remembered my name. Suddenly, they were all in my inbox, like they had a personal stake in my love life. "Nat deserves a chance." "You liked her before, don't be shallow." "She's been through a lot. Why can't you be supportive? You're being stuck up now that you've glowed up. That's messed up." My favorite one, the one that made me laugh out loud even as my stomach twisted. "You owe her this, Sylvia." Owe her? For what? For lying to me? For turning me into a charity case when she rejected me? For cornering me at a party like I was obliged to still be in love with her? The messages weren't violent or obscene, but they chipped at me. Little taps of pressure, guilt, expectation. And still, Nat herself stayed silent, which almost made it worse. I found myself shrinking again, just like the old version of me, checking over my shoulder in the grocery store, taking different streets to avoid running into anyone, letting my phone die so I didn't have to see new notifications light up the screen. It wasn't until Tony called that I snapped back into reality. I was sitting on my bedroom floor, staring at my phone like it had personally betrayed me, when it buzzed with his name. I answered with a shaky, "Hey." "You sound like you swallowed a cactus," Tony said. "What's up?" I hesitated. People are messaging me about Nat. There was a beat of silence, then a very Tony-like response. Okay, and who the hell are they to you? I let out a weak laugh. Nobody, I guess. Then why are you letting nobody stress you out? He demanded. You said no. You don't need a thesis statement to justify it. I could hear Steve in the background shouting, "No means no!" like some over-enthusiastic sitcom neighbor. Part of me wanted to laugh. Part of me wanted to cry. They're acting like I'm evil, I said. Like I'm some heartless person punishing a single mom. And you're acting like their opinion determines the weather, Tony shot back. Listen to me, Sylvia. You don't owe anyone a date. Not Nat. Not her friends. Not people who haven't spoken to you in a decade. I knew he was right. But anxiety doesn't care about logic. It cares about pressure. I just don't like conflict, I admitted. No one does. But making yourself miserable to protect someone else's feelings, that's not kindness. That's self-destruction. His voice softened. Just breathe, kiddo. You don't have to fix this right now. But the thing was, I wanted to fix it. Not for Nat. For me. Because the unresolved tension felt like a frayed thread I couldn't stop pulling. My younger brother had his own ideas about the situation. You should just go out with her, he said over dinner one night, shrugging like he was suggesting I try a new sandwich. See if you vibe. Worst case, you don't. My fork paused halfway to my mouth. Did you miss the part where she lied to me and then sicked half the town on me? She didn't sick anyone, he argued. Her friends are probably just hyping her up. It's not that deep. It feels deep, I muttered. He shrugged again, like emotions were optional in his world. Then there was my older sister. She listened quietly as I rambled through every detail. Nat, the party, the pressure, the messages. Then she said the simplest, most grounding thing. Do you want to date her? No. Then that's the end of the story. I blinked. It can't be that simple. It is, she said, sipping her tea. You don't date people out of guilt, or pity, or nostalgia, or pressure. You date someone because you want them. So what do? You hold your boundary, she said, and you stop justifying your no to anyone who isn't you. Her calmness settled something inside me, but the messages kept coming, and the anxiety kept humming, and Nat still hadn't said a word to me directly. It wasn't until the next morning, after a night of tossing and turning, that I realized something uncomfortable but true. This felt unresolved because I had left it unresolved. I had run away from the conversation at the party so fast, I hadn't given myself room to breathe, process, or end things cleanly. I didn't want a relationship with Nat, but I also didn't want to carry this weight forever. So, before I could talk myself out of it, I typed a message. Hey, Nat, would you be open to meeting for coffee? Not a date, just to clear the air. I'm tired of the weird tension and the messages. I think it would help us both. I stared at the screen for a full minute before hitting send. Her reply came back almost instantly. Yes, I'd like that, and I'm really sorry if my friends made anything weird. There are things I want to explain too. I exhaled. There it was. The first sign that maybe, just maybe, this wasn't about a horde of people trying to force me into a relationship. Maybe it was about two women who handled old wounds badly. Two imperfect people who got tangled in miscommunication. I didn't want romance, but I did want peace. The coffee shop was quiet when I arrived. Low music, warm lighting, the smell of espresso seeping into my clothes. I picked a corner table, ordered a tea, and tried not to bounce my leg. Every time the door chimed, my heart lurched. Nat arrived 10 minutes late. Flustered, breathless, hair slipping out of its clip. Sorry, childcare thing. His dad got stuck in traffic. His dad? I asked, surprised. Nat nodded, sliding into the seat. Yeah, he's very much in our son's life. We're just terrible as a couple. But he's a great father. That surprised me. I'd assumed she was doing it all alone, which was probably my first mistake, assuming anything. We talked. Slowly at first, stiffly, then more honestly than either of us expected. I told her how pressured and cornered I felt, how the lie from years ago still stung, not because I expected her to date me, but because it made me feel like a joke, how the messages from her friends sent my anxiety into overdrive. I'm sorry, she said softly, eyes shining with sincerity. I didn't know they were doing that. I vented to them after the party because I was humiliated. They're protective and a little impulsive. They meant well, but it wasn't their place. Then she told me something I didn't expect. The last guy I tried dating. He told me he didn't want someone used up by being a mom. Her voice cracked. I thought I was okay, but when you rejected me, all that hurt came back. I reacted badly. I'm sorry, Sylvia. I didn't know what to say at first. I had been so wrapped up in my own anxiety that I hadn't considered hers. I didn't reject you because you're a mom, I said gently. I'm just not interested. Not anymore. She nodded, swallowing hard. I get that, and I accept it. We sat there a moment in silence. Two women who had once been almost something, finally letting that almost go. When we stood to leave, she offered a small smile. If things ever change someday, years from now, maybe, we can revisit it. But no pressure, zero, I promise. I smiled back. Same. Not a promise, not a plan, just a quiet recognition that life is long and unpredictable. But right now, we were closing a chapter that should have ended years ago. And it felt good. Really good. The weirdest part about closure is how quiet everything feels afterward. No buzzing phone. No emotional static humming in my chest. No imaginary arguments replaying in my head. Just silence. And in that silence, I finally had room to think clearly. The messages from Nat's friends stopped overnight. Not gradually. Not with half-hearted apologies. Just gone. If anything, that alone proved Nat had been telling the truth. She hadn't sent them after me in some manipulative campaign. They were simply overzealous friends reacting to hurt they didn't fully understand. For the first time in weeks, I could walk through the grocery store without feeling like eyes were on me. I could check my phone without bracing myself. I could breathe. But what surprised me wasn't the relief. It was the softness toward Nat, toward myself, toward the entire messy situation. Because when I replayed our conversation, it didn't feel like a confrontation. It felt like two people choosing honesty over pride. Nat didn't try to guilt me. I didn't try to justify myself. There were no theatrics, no manipulation, no last-minute confessions. Just truth. And truth, when spoken gently, can make even old wounds feel lighter. A few days later, Tony called again. So? He demanded, skipping hello. You two fight? Did she cry? Did you cry? Give me the play-by-play. I laughed. Relax. It was normal. Healthy, even. Ugh, he groaned dramatically. Healthy conversations. Disgusting. I was hoping for chaos. You would, I teased. Steve's voice chimed in the background. We're proud of you, Morga. I didn't do anything special, I said. You set a boundary, Tony replied, cleanly and respectfully. That's something most adults can't manage. His words warmed something in my chest. Because for most of my life, I had been the girl who folded, the girl who swallowed discomfort to make others comfortable, the girl whose boundaries were invisible unless someone else drew them for her. This time I drew my own lines and stood by them, even when people pushed, even when the past came knocking, even when anxiety clamped around my lungs. I didn't bend, not out of spite, not out of ego, but out of self-respect. I didn't want to date Nat, and the world didn't end when I said that out loud. My sister came over that weekend, armed with pastries and emotional detachment, her trademark combination. We sat on my porch, sipping iced tea, while she listened to the full story. At the end, she nodded once. Good. Now can you finally stop spiraling? I wasn't spiraling, I protested. She raised one eyebrow. I caved. Fine, I spiraled a little. A little? I rolled my eyes. Okay, a lot. She bumped my shoulder with hers. Sylvia, you don't have to justify your feelings or your decisions. Not every no needs supporting evidence. I know, I whispered. Do you? She asked. And I realized, yeah, maybe I finally did. Of course, not everyone got the memo. I was at the hardware store the following week, looking for light bulbs, when a girl from my high school, someone who once copied my calculus homework, tapped my shoulder. So, she said, arms crossed, I heard you broke Nat's heart again. I blinked. I didn't. She cut me off. Honestly, Sylvia, you think you're too good for this town now, just because you got a job in the city and grew cheekbones? I stared at her, stunned. 2 years ago, that would have gutted me. 2 months ago, her words would have sat on my chest like a weight. 2 weeks ago, they might have sent me spiraling all over again. But now, I just felt tired. Look, I said calmly, I don't owe you or anyone an explanation about who I date. She scoffed. Wow, you've changed. Yeah, I said softly, I have. And I walked away. Not trembling, not second-guessing, not apologizing. Just done. Later, as I sat in my car, I realized something important. People who want to misunderstand you always will. But people who care, they listen, they grow, they soften. Nat had, I had, the rest didn't matter. A few days after that, I saw Nat again. It was accidental. We both reached for the same carton of strawberries at the farmer's market. For a moment, we just looked at each other. Then she laughed. A real laugh this time, light and unguarded. You take them, she said, pulling her hand back. No, go ahead, I insisted. Last time I took them, the universe punished me with chaos. She grinned. Guess we're even now. We stood there, awkward for a heartbeat. Then she said, I'm glad we talked. Me too, I said honestly. I'm glad we cleared things up. She nodded, shifting her tote bag on her shoulder. And hey, for what it's worth, you look really happy now. I am, I said. That wasn't a lie. We said goodbye, simple, light, unweighted, and walked in opposite directions. No romantic tension, no lingering question marks, no unfinished business. Just closure. Real closure. The kind you feel deep in your chest, like a knot finally coming undone. Later that night, as I sat on my couch with a cup of tea, I thought about the whole arc of it all. My childhood crush, the lie, the party confrontation, the messages, the anxiety, the coffee shop conversation, the unexpected peace. It struck me how long I'd let that old version of myself, awkward, insecure, afraid of upsetting anyone, dictate my choices. But not anymore. This time I chose myself, my comfort, my boundaries, my truth. And the world didn't punish me for it. It rewarded me with clarity, with calm, with closure. And sometimes that's all the love story you need.